I'm Ryan Yamamoto, and this is the Minute. Fire tore through a 4-story building under construction in San Francisco. It broke out just after 4:30 this morning at Lion and Clay in Presidio Heights. Firefighters say 6 residential units were damaged. They were all vacant. No reports of any injuries. Students at Stanford University on day 2 of their sit-in protests on campus. They are calling on the school to divest from the Israeli government. Stanford says it supports the right to peacefully protest, but it does not allow classes to be disrupted or overnight camping. Well, today the Oakland Police Department is holding a memorial for former officer Jordan Wingate. He died on Saturday from injuries from a car crash while on duty in August of 2018. That memorial is taking place at 3 Crosses Church in Castro Valley. The Bay Area's only primetime newscast at 8, 9 p.m. on the all-new Pix Plus 44 Cable 12. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is The Minute.
All right, since it is the wind that's going to be the bigger factor on this day, let's get some specifics on it. It's breezy through the afternoon, but once we get to the late afternoon and early evening, the wind intensity has picked up, and now you're seeing 40-mile-an-hour gusts rushing down the coastline. It's more like 20 to 25-mile-an-hour winds if you're inland. That means you've got a wind chill factor, so if the daytime highs today are going to the low to mid-60s, that's going to make it feel more like the upper 50s for daytime highs. It's going to feel a little bit cooler as a result. Let's get into the 7-day forecast, because after today, with its hit and miss, don't count on much rain, obviously the big focus then needs to be the weekend. How does this impact Saturday and Sunday? There's going to be less wind on Saturday, still a bit of a breeze, but not as windy as today. So I don't think you've got to factor in a wind chill on that 72. It's going to feel like 72. Sunday, we get a couple of degrees warmer. Inland, you'll be in the mid-70s. And then through the rest of the 7-day forecast, it's just sunny and warming still. So you're going to be back up to near 80 for daytime highs. Once we get towards the middle of next week, if we do the same thing for the Bay, we see the story on that. With the warming trend that gets us towards the middle of next week, we will see daytime highs that will have climbed up to around 70. So low 70s back here. Great looking middle of the next week. But you still have the wind for Friday and a bit of a leftover breeze on Saturday. 64 is going to feel more like, say, 58. But by Saturday, that 67 is going to feel like 67 because we'll have a little bit of less wind around for the weekend.
Well, San Francisco Mayor London Breed is back from a trip to China and making a visible push to fight for her job in the middle of a tough re-election fight. She has major opposition, several high-profile challengers campaigning on the promises of change. Each are touting their own solutions to the city's problems, from crime to the housing crisis. The candidates have made it a strategy of getting out into the city's neighborhoods to hear from voters directly. Wilson Walker went along with Mayor Breed as she walked San Bruno Avenue in the Portola district.
Oh my goodness, Leon, you got my grandmothers out here in the cold.
In a blustery afternoon wind, Mayor London Breed hit San Bruno Avenue, going door to door along a business corridor with a large Chinese population, and a sure sign that the campaign and hand-to-hand politics are well underway.
We got a whole crew. Come on.
Accompanied by the woman she calls her Asian grandmother, Breed led a team of supporters up and down this street for some voter outreach. Her other job was never far away.
I was asking the mayor if she's going to be fixing the potholes on Mission Street here in San Francisco. We do a lot of low riding there, and our cars are getting messed up.
You said low rider, I'll talk to Roberta.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
And my hope is that by being out here, I can answer questions, I can deal with people's issues and concerns. I mean, even a speed bump that still hasn't happened.
Beyond the job of being mayor, Breed must also convince residents that things are getting better in San Francisco, something you do hear in the city quite a bit. However,
do you feel enough people feel that way and will ultimately, in a couple months, decide to give you credit?
Well, my hope is to get credit for it. And like today out here in San Bruno, I am talking to people about the various programs that we provide from the city. People are realizing that it is attributed to the work that I am doing as mayor.
So the posters went up along San Bruno, in some cases right alongside those of an opponent, a reminder that this is a complicated race for the mayor as voters have options.
Look, it's hard to have a conversation about the race with anyone in the city, and they don't mention ranked choice voting. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are it's important for me to run my race and to talk about all the things that I have done. And the fact is, and just to talk about safety, crime is down lower than it's been in 10 years, not including the pandemic. And even in 2024, it's continuing to trend down. So we are seeing the difference, but we also have to make sure people feel the difference. So when you hear people say it's getting better, they're starting to feel it, but we want them to feel it more consistently. And I think that's going to be a determining factor when folks go to the polls, you know, whether or not they see the consistency, and we have plenty of time to get there.
Now, the mayor had made one neighborhood walkabout since her return from China, and that was in Chinatown. Probably gives you a pretty good idea of how the mayor's campaign team sees this race taking shape with just over 190 days to go until Election Day.
In Palo Alto, students at Stanford are spending another day camped out on campus. It's all part of a nationwide effort to call attention to what they call a genocide in Gaza. Organizers say the university's administration should not support Israel through its investments. The encampment at Stanford showed up last night with more than 100 students setting up tents and signs saying, "Divest now and hands off Rafah." This is the second pro-Palestinian demonstration by students at Stanford. That first encampment lasted about 120 days and disbanded in February after they met with university leadership and students were allowed to express their concerns. Meantime, demonstrators who are camped out on campus at UC Berkeley are showing no signs of leaving anytime soon. More than 100 people are staying in tents at Sproul Plaza, including students with Palestinian backgrounds who say they want their school to take a stand. Our Jose Martinez went to Berkeley to check on those protests on their third night.
I'm here at UC Berkeley where, as you can see, more than 100 Gaza protesters continue to camp out right outside the Sprout Hall building. I talked to some of them about their concerns. Malak Afani, a law student at the university and a daughter of Palestinian immigrants, stands among over 100 pro-Palestinian protesters who have set up camp outside Sproul Hall. Their message is clear. They call for a ceasefire in Gaza and demand action from the university.
It is absolutely ridiculous that the university that prides itself on diversity, equity, and inclusion, Berkeley specifically on having a very radical history of student organizing, refuses to stand on the side of justice and divest.
Malak tells me that this Thursday marks the 4th day of their demonstrations. The group has outlined some key demands.
One being that the UC administration end their silence, that they categorize what is occurring in Palestine as a genocide because they have failed to do so. The second is utter and complete UC financial divestment from any entity complicit in apartheid, especially weapons arms manufacturer companies.
But Malak is not alone. Youssef, a mechanical engineering student at UC Berkeley, shows his support by assisting with the protesters' logistics.
I feel like if all of us, of students on this campus, you know, citizens of this country, so on and so forth, really like experience even a fraction of the pain, the fear, the violence that, you know, Gazans, Palestinians as a whole live under day by day in Gaza, Rafah, and so on and so forth. I feel like if we understood even a fraction of that pain, all of us would be out here.
The students say they are willing to risk expulsion and arrest. UC Berkeley officials say they are observing the demonstration, but there has been no disruptions of university operations. A spokesperson says the university guidance directs us not to request law enforcement involvement preemptively, and only if absolutely necessary to protect the physical safety of the campus community. The governor is also following the campus demonstrations.
We're working with the trustees and with the university systems as it relates to our public role and responsibility. And so we're very mindful of what's going on the campuses and want to maintain people's rights to protest, at the same time do so peacefully without any hate. We don't want any more. I just want to avoid a lot of what we're seeing in other parts of the country.
In the meantime, more students keep joining the protest. According to Malak, at least 100 students have been camping out here since the beginning of the protest, and they say they're not planning on going anywhere until they see results.
I'm optimistic that we will achieve our goal of divestment. We're willing to risk suspension, expulsion, and arrest until divestment is achieved, and we're not going anywhere.
And ultimately, they all agree on one thing. It's time to end this conflict that's been happening for too long.
And for continuing coverage on what's happening in the Middle East, the occupation at UC Berkeley and other college campuses all across the country, stay with us on air on our website at kpix.com and streaming on the free CBS News app. Still ahead on CBS News Bay Area, a family of 4 killed in a crash in the Tri-Valley, while we learn about the victims and the history of tragedy along a troubled roadway. Plus, in the Bay Area city, notorious for parking tickets, some of the officers leaving them behind are afraid of who could be following them. And mass layoffs at Tesla workers here in the Bay Area. We'll ask a UC Berkeley professor what this means for the company and for California.
I'm a pilot for the California Army National Guard. I fly Blackhawks here in the state.
There is nothing that Jessica Birch can't do.
She is dedicated. She's super fun.
Jessica is remarkable.
I like the idea of being able to serve the Northern Californian people out doing search and rescues, helping out with CAL FIRE missions. And I also feel like I have a heart for service also when it comes to forecasting for our local area. I mean, getting people prepared for their day. That's a huge importance for me.
Wake up with a morning edition, weekdays on KPIX.
Looking sky today with billowing clouds and breaks of blue in it. More blue than not, actually, but all the while we're watching for the chance for some light rain today. You see them working their way down the coast? Not much to that. We've got blue skies while that happens, and then a complex of thunderstorms is going to graze the East Bay. I don't think we actually get any rain from either of these, but it's possible. We'll keep a close eye on it. The bigger issue and the more likely noticeable item for today is the wind. We're going to look at that coming up in the full forecast in just a bit.
Well, in Pleasanton, a community is mourning after a Tri-Valley family of 4, including 2 children, were killed in a fiery crash. Friends of the family were there to leave flowers behind at the crash site on the western edge of the city. The car crashed on Foothill Road between Stone Ridge Drive and Las Positas Road Wednesday. No other cars were involved. The car slammed into a tree and burst into flames, leaving behind a mess of mangled metal and a burn scar soaked from foam from attempts to put out that fire. Andrea Nakano spoke with family, friends, and about the terrible loss.
Hassan Sheikh was one of many friends to stop by the crash site with flowers in hand.
It's really sad and tragic to see this and hear this.
He used to work with a man that died in the crash for roughly 5 years.
It's very shocking, very nice person, always, energetic, and it was always a pleasure to work with him and, talk to him, and we used to have a lot of conversation.
Many others stopped by, friends, neighbors, and kids that went to school with one of the children. Pleasanton police have not released the names of the victims, but say it was a mother, father, and their 2 children. The Pleasanton Unified School District says both were students, one in middle school and the other in elementary. John Roderigs lives near where the crash happened and could hear and see the accident.
Just popping noises, and then we looked out our window and saw fire.
He wonders how this crash could have happened, but he has noticed aggressive drivers on this stretch of Foothill Road.
Every night we hear cars going pretty fast on that road, and we've lived here for almost 10 years, and it's been a problem ever since.
Friends describe the family as very social and active in the community. The father enjoyed outdoor activities such as hiking and skiing.
He was a great personality and very active.
And this isn't the first time tragedy has struck on Foothill Road in Pleasanton. There have been 4 other deadly crashes in the last 2 decades. That includes Christmas night on 2019. Twin teenage brothers and their friends were killed. Their vehicle also slammed into a tree. Julia Goodrich was at the scene and says the road has a reputation for these kinds of accidents.
I can tell you from growing up here in Pleasanton and living here as a resident now, Foothill Road has always been known as a dangerous stretch of roadway. And in particular, this spot right now where it just merges into one lane. You can see these cars right now going the speed limit, but sometimes that's not always the case. Parents have had petitions. They've tried to get things changed along the roadway. And I can tell you as a parent, anytime we hear that there's an accident or a fatality, we call our kids to make sure they aren't behind the wheel.
And the Pleasanton Unified School District tells us counseling and support services will be available to students and staff in the wake of this tragedy. In San Francisco, parking enforcement officers are being told to step up enforcement, but they told our Amanda Harry now they feel they have an even bigger target on their back.
It's very stressful. I have anxiety, and it's scary.
San Francisco is a union town.
Dozens of parking control officers with the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency took a break from enforcing the city's laws to rally and fight for themselves, including Mishan Shakesnader. She says 2 years ago, she had an experience she'll never forget. She placed a parking citation under someone's windshield wiper and drove away, thinking that interaction was over. She was wrong.
Someone got upset because they got a ticket, so he followed me about 2 or 3 blocks, waited for me, punched the window, and it cut my eye.
The glass from the enforcement vehicle's window cut her face and her eye. She couldn't work for 10 months while she recovered.
I thought I was going to lose my eye.
Shakesnader says SFMTA is pressing charges, but the case is still pending. She did think about leaving her job.
I thought about just doing a desk job, but I was like, I'm not going to let him win. And so I initially went back out, but I'm still apprehensive to this day.
Trevor Adams, the president of the Parking Control Officers Union, says Shakesnader is not alone in her experience.
We deal with everything from objects being thrown at us, all the way up to physical assaults, threats being made on our lives and our family.
SFMTA said in a statement that they prioritize their employees' safety and that safety incidents are down 48% since 2018. They say the officers get de-escalation training, self-defense tools, and have access to a dispatch center that communicates directly to police.
Power, power, power.
But Adams says they're calling on SFMTA to do more. He says the parking control officers didn't know about the intensive parking enforcement sweeps that were recently announced by the SFMTA director.
It was kind of shocking to me because, you know, we do have forums where we can meet with with the mayor and with our leadership, and never once have we been, brought into that conversation.
The announcement and the upcoming sweeps makes both Adams and Sheikh Snyder even more concerned for their safety.
Every day, I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, I'm traumatized.
And parking control officers say while they're still negotiating their contracts, all options are still on the table, including a strike. In Alameda County, hundreds of former inmates are being connected to local businesses and nonprofits to give them a second chance. The county held a job fair at Oakland Coliseum yesterday. They also offered support in the form of job training, social services, even haircuts and headshots.
We live in a world where second chances make a big difference. People make mistakes, but everybody deserves an opportunity to grow from those mistakes and do better in life.
This is the second time the county has held the event. It's all part of the National Second Chance Month. Still ahead, a new bill was introduced in California to crack down on artificial intelligence. A professor from UC Berkeley joins us to break down what this means for a tech community. And a reminder, you can stream CBS News Bay Area wherever, whenever. Catch all of our live newscasts plus news and weather updates throughout the day. Find us on the free CBS News app or on Pluto TV.
Why are more people turning to KPIX Late Night? Two reasons. Sarah and Stephen. The Late News with Sarah Donchie. Then The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Back with all new episodes.
Really?
Two shows you'll want to spend the night with.
Then go to sleep knowing you won at TV. What?
Record it, stream it, watch it live. The Late News and the all-new Late Show. Weeknights starting at 11 on KPIX.
System that's going to try and bring us some light rain today. It already did this morning. In fact, if we use the virtual map to visualize an interesting pattern in terms of where rain had fallen and where it didn't, you had to be on the coast. Petaluma, or at least near the coast. Petaluma, San Francisco, and Half Moon Bay. All got a couple hundredths of an inch of rain in this soupy stuff this morning. Look at the big picture, though. Go inland. Nobody got any rain today. That was in the Santa Clara Valley, or at least not in the morning, and not in the Tri-Valley. There were a few showers we were watching falling down in the Santa Clara Valley, but I just don't see anything measurable that actually accumulated down there. So we're going to look ahead now because there's still a chance for more of this. And on the big picture, the system is going to continue to drop a few showers off the coast through this afternoon while we're looking at blue sky. So it's kind of an interesting setup. The wind is going to be the more impactful side of this, and we could see 40-mile-an-hour gusts moving across the coast this afternoon with 20-mile-an-hour gusts inland. That's kind of the review on this. You can see how this will go in the afternoon. Strong winds out here, 20 to 25-mile-an-hour winds if you're in the immediate bay or in the inland valleys. What does this mean for the weekend? We're looking at that coming up in the full forecast in just a bit.
Well, Tesla plans to lay off nearly 3,000 of its employees right here in the Bay Area. Documents filed by the company shows workers in Palo Alto and Fremont will be among the mass layoffs. Those layoffs are set to begin on June 14th. And joining me now is global strategist Dr. Olaf Groth with UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. So thank you very much for joining us. Tesla has been struggling lately. Its first quarter profit plunged 55%. So what does this all mean for the company? What does this mean for California?
Yeah, good to be with you. This is a perfect storm for Tesla at the moment. The 2,700 employees, of course, hurt California, but in the larger scheme of things, 47,000 employees here in the state, it's probably not dramatic, but it will probably get more dramatic. Tesla is, like I said, in a perfect storm due to a few different things. One is sluggish demand because of high interest rates here in the United States, as well as a slow infrastructure build out. Then increasing price pressure, primarily due to competition from other brands here in the United States, as well as China. BYD, very prominent Chinese manufacturer, one of the biggest ones in the world for electric vehicles. And then supply chain issues due to geopolitics around the world aren't making things easier. What's looming then is also geopolitics, as well as repair costs for the Cybertruck, also expensive new development costs for the cheaper vehicle, robo-taxis, humanoid robots. There's a lot of heavy-duty expenditures coming up here for Tesla. My hunch is we're going to see more layoffs in the future, but overall, the company is well-positioned to come out the other end.
You mentioned the Cybertruck not really making the big splash that was anticipated, also having some major troubles, too.
Exactly, right. We had these brake pad problems, or brake pedal pads problems, and a recall that was fairly costly. Now, this happens to a lot of automakers, but it is unpleasant when a vehicle is first introduced, and it clearly put some cost pressure on Tesla that it has to make up elsewhere.
Turning now to the $95 billion aid package, a foreign aid package for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel recently signed by President Joe Biden. That bill could also lead to a potential TikTok ban. Do you actually think that's going to happen?
That's a good question. So I think this will get fought out in the courts, and it may well be that it gets overturned. But I think the bigger problem is whether it will incur a retaliation on the part of Beijing, because a lot of companies here in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area are, of course, dependent. Just think about the big names like Tesla, like Apple. Probably 3 or 4 dozen other companies that are vital to our economy that have big dependencies in terms of supply chain and also market positions in and with China. So that's really the bigger risk here, short term. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. Secretary of State Blinken is over in Beijing right now, and it seems as though the conversations are constructive. So fingers crossed.
So the Olaf Yamamoto TikTok feed is going to be fine. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, for now anyway, the non-existent one. Yes.
Yes. All right. Finally, both the state and feds are introducing bills aimed at regulating artificial intelligence. What does this mean for the Bay Area tech community?
Yeah, so we have a very strict bill forthcoming here in California, AB 3211, that will establish what's called data authentication, provenance, ownership. And it's going to force not just big tech companies that make these AI models and use the data to think about their business models, but also consumer electronics makers, the makers of consumer recording equipment like cameras, for instance, to allow consumers to watermark the content that they create before it gets moved on and used by somebody in their AI model. So that's a big one. The second one is the American Privacy Rights Act, APRA, that got revived by 2 female senators, one senator, one congresswoman, in a cross-the-aisle bipartisan fashion, still in draft mode, but that will also include provisions on data ownership, on data debiasing, and in fact also give executive responsibility for any sort of infractions here to C-level leaders in Silicon Valley. And so there are a lot of heavy-duty changes forthcoming if these bills end up passing. It's pretty remarkable in an election year that is dominated by a lot of different issues, but not necessarily by AI and data. So we're seeing that this is becoming more and more important, and we desperately need new solutions. So we need to call on Silicon Valley to not just complain about regulation, but put new business models in place and new solutions.
You have to think that this is just the first of a wave of bills and regulations that are still to come, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? China is there. Europe is there. If we want to lead on the forefront of the digital economy, we need to have trust in that economy in order to get to that next level. And we can't just play it laissez-faire anymore. Data and AI are too important in our lives not to go for the big trust game.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Olaf Groth with UC Berkeley. Always great information. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
And coming up in our next half hour, CBS News Bay Area, small businesses packing up and leaving San Francisco. We hear from one Bay Area native about why she closed up shop and hit the road. And an art fair comes to San Francisco to bring hope for local artists all under one roof. How they're trying to paint a different picture of the city.
These are your neighborhoods. This is your world. CBS News Bay Area.
And still ahead on KPI.
With Juliette Goodrich. And the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell. Taking you to the day's top stories. Smart, comprehensive coverage. And immersive weather like you have never seen it. Join Juliette Goodrich and Nora O'Donnell. Weeknights 6 to 7:30 on KPIX.
I'm Ryan Yamamoto. This is a minute. A stretch of southbound 680 will be closed this weekend. Caltrans will continue the repaving project in Pleasanton and Sunol. The stretch of southbound 680 will be closed from the 580 connector to Koopman Road. This starts at 9 tonight. It's expected to reopen on Monday. In Oakland, Horn Barbecue is making a comeback today, fired towards the restaurant's Mandela Parkway location last year, and they were not being able to repair the damage. Well, today the restaurant is holding a grand reopening at its new location on 8th Street. 49ers ended the first day of the NFL draft with a new member of the team, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. He caught 65 passes for 965 yards last season with the Florida Gators. He started his college career at Arizona State, where he was teammates with Brandon Ayuk in 2019. The Bay Area's only primetime newscast at 8 and 9 p.m. on the all-new Pix Plus 4 to 4 Cable 12.
All right, since it is the wind that's going to be the bigger factor on this day, let's get some specifics on it. It's breezy through the afternoon, but once we get to the late afternoon and early evening, the wind intensity has picked up, and now you're seeing 40-mile-an-hour gusts rushing down the coastline. It's more like 20 to 25-mile-an-hour winds if you're inland. That means you've got a wind chill factor, so if the daytime highs today are going to the low to mid-60s, that's going to make it feel more like the upper 50s for daytime highs. It's going to feel a little bit cooler as a result. Let's get into the 7-day forecast, because after today, with its hit and miss, don't count on much rain, obviously the big focus then needs to be the weekend. How does this impact Saturday and Sunday? There's going to be less wind on Saturday, still a bit of a breeze, but not as windy as today. So I don't think you've got to factor in a wind chill on that 72. It's going to feel like 72. Sunday, we get a couple of degrees warmer. Inland, you'll be in the mid-70s, and then through the rest of the 7-day forecast, it's just sunny and warming still. So you're going to be back up to near 80 for daytime highs. Once we get towards the middle of next week, if we do the same thing for the Bay, we see the story on that. With the warming trend that gets us towards the middle of next week, we will see daytime highs that will have climbed up to around 70. So low 70s back here. Great looking middle of the next week. But you still have the wind for Friday and a bit of a leftover breeze on Saturday. 64 is going to feel more like, say, 58. But by Saturday, that 67 is going to feel like 67 because we'll have a little bit of less wind around for the weekend.
San Francisco's retail challenges have been a big part of the conversations about the future of the city. There's been a wave of major store closures downtown, from the owner Westfield Ball walking away from the property to Macy's announcing plans to close this iconic Union Square location. The tough environment also led hundreds of small businesses to leave San Francisco. The city is trying to offer resources to help the ones who are hanging on, but for many, it's too little too late. Our Ann Makovic met up with a Bay Area native who packed up and moved her boutique to Los Angeles and is not looking back.
Sasha Darling knows that being a boutique owner has its ups and downs.
So you really have to be okay with the unknown and be the kind of person that can quickly adapt.
Bell Jar Boutique started with a Bay Area girl from Marin making a dream come true.
I really wanted to open a boutique in my hometown that really reflected my San Francisco style and the style of all my girlfriends.
Her store in the city's Mission District was a success when it opened in 2007, but 10 years later, her landlord raised her rent from $3,000 to $8,000.
I think we need a necklace.
Hundreds of businesses have left San Francisco since Sasha closed her boutique. Then it was high rents cutting into profits. More recently, concerns about crime and a lack of foot traffic since the pandemic. About half of the stores in the city's downtown have closed since 2019, so much so that rents are back down. This past year, the San Francisco Office of Small Business added a commercial leasing specialist offering free advice to business owners dealing with wild swings in rent. They offer a variety of free services, from help with permits to marketing, hoping to keep small businesses in the city.
We know how important they are, and many of the business owners are very good at their craft and what they do, and there are some other areas where perhaps they need a little bit more assistance from, and that's where we come in to assist.
But it's too late for Bell Jar Boutique. Sasha moved her business to Los Angeles.
Business in LA is definitely a lot better than it was in San Francisco.
Before her San Francisco shop closed, Sasha opened another Bell Jar in LA's Los Feliz neighborhood. She was planning to run it remotely.
I mean, I was definitely one of those people that hadn't spent any time in LA, but being from the Bay Area had like a prejudice against it for being superficial and like vapid.
But a change of scenery opened her mind. She rented a small apartment for a third of her rent in the city and stuck around to take care of the new shop.
And I still had my house in San Francisco, but I just found myself spending like 70% of the time here and like 30% of the time in San Francisco.
After dealing with the ups and downs of property prices, she bought a new house, the perfect accessory for her new life in L.A.
So we were curious as to whatever happened to Sasha's old storefront in San Francisco's Mission District. Well, now it's a comic book shop specializing in LGBTQ material called Sour Cherry Comics. It's on 16th Street near Valencia, near where the owner, Leigh Moret, lives. She says she's opening it has become a dream come true.
And we're excited to be here, and our sales have improved like year after year. It's just everything's very expensive, so we are hopeful that we can stay in the same place if our landlord's willing to work with us on that.
The store has been open for about 2 years, and her current lease is about to come to an end. She hopes to expand to an online store in the future, but right now she says she can only employ 2 people 1 day a week each. And this weekend in the city, you can see art on display at 85 different galleries from all over the world come together under one roof. The San Francisco Art Fair opens today. It runs through Sunday. Sean Chitnis got a preview of the work of some local artists featured in the show who hope to shine a bright light on San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Art has always been a leader and a unifying force whenever there have been challenging times.
Cheryl Darracott is an artist who has lived in the Bay Area for 12 years. And one of the challenges she sees currently, her community framed with negative images too often. So she is painting a picture of her home in a positive perspective.
San Francisco's really been thriving. And anyone who takes a look at all of the great artworks, a lot of new businesses and galleries which have opened in San Francisco since the pandemic is really a story of resilience and recovery after the pandemic.
She's curated a collection of pieces at the 2024 San Francisco Art Fair with other local artists. Their work united in the message, "We didn't get the memo," because in their eyes and through their art, the doom loop narrative doesn't tell the whole story. They say the Bay Area has so much to celebrate, including nature.
We are all part of the same system, and we need to treat it as such.
Cheryl's own work showcases the redwoods in our region, part of a range of art forms portraying the landscape of where we live and saying there is plenty to be proud of here.
The opportunity to gather this way at the San Francisco Art Fair is, absolutely a privilege, and also I think just a really important collective moment for people to be together in the spirit of community and art.
Up next, El Farolito is known for their food, their fish and burritos, but the San Francisco restaurant is now getting a whole lot of attention for its soccer team. The part-time players who just took down the pros.
It's a peace of mind to me, being able to step in the field with my teammates. I like to call them brothers.
I would like to see the headlines that the national press picks up on and say, look, there's another side to the Bay Area.
We take those headlines a little step further to sort of connect all these wonderful communities here.
Really embracing the positivity and hopefully spreading it.
The Bay Area is full of some amazing, innovative change makers.
People that are out there making a difference.
In fact, I feel privileged that I get to share those stories.
Wake up with the Morning Edition, weekdays on KPIX.
dramatic looking sky today with billowing clouds and breaks of blue in it. More blue than not, actually, but all the while we're watching for the chance for some light rain today. You see them working their way down the coast? Not much to that. We've got blue skies while that happens. And then a complex of thunderstorms is going to graze the East Bay. I don't think we actually get any rain from either of these, but it's possible. We'll keep a close eye on it. The bigger issue and the more likely noticeable item for today is the wind. We're going to look at that coming up in the full forecast in just a bit.
Well, interest in soccer is on the upswing in the Bay Area thanks in part to the newly formed Oakland Roots as well as the older clubs from San Francisco's whose name you're just as likely to see on a bag of tacos as you are on the pitch. Maureen Ayub explains.
From the kitchen to the field, the El Farolito story may have begun with tacos, but it's moving forward with new goals. Every kick gets him closer to his goal. Gabriel Arias is a center midfielder with the El Farolito Amateur Soccer Club in San Francisco. The team started back in 1985, named after the owner's chain of beloved Bay Area taquerias. At 25 years old, even after college, Gabriel says he's grateful to have an outlet to continue to do what he loves with a community he's grown to love.
It means a lot. It brings peace of mind to me, being able to step on the field with my teammates. I like to call them brothers.
A team of brothers of all ages and backgrounds. The club team plays in the National Premier Soccer League, and while the players are all passionate about the sport, most have regular day jobs to allow them to continue to do what they love. As for Gabriel, he's been working hard to balance being a construction engineer by day and soccer athlete by night. He hopes to play professionally one day, but sometimes, even during practice, those work demands continue.
It's a whole different world, being an engineer in the field of construction. There's way more stuff going on. When you come here, it's all just brotherhood.
A brotherhood that evolved when the original owner of El Farolitos, Salvador Lopez, opened his first taqueria in the Mission. Now, with 12 locations throughout the Bay Area, diners who frequent the chain, like Taylor Burks, love supporting the sport, too.
I love soccer. I'm a soccer player myself, so it's good to support soccer wherever I can, and the burritos are good, so it's a win-win.
And speaking of winning, from the Open Cup to their strong standings in the NPSL, just how far can El Faro go? Well, according to Gabriel, all the way. He wants people to know just how passionate the Bay Area soccer scene is.
There's great talent here. More scouts should come out here and look at all the talent there is.
Talent, passion, and limitless goals.
Well, coming up, an old tradition that could be making a comeback, the new Bay Area Lending Library providing patrons with a blast from the past.
This is Pix Plus. More of what you want, more often. More local news in the morning and the primetime edition. The only 8 and 9 p.m. news. With Devin Feely, Elizabeth Cook, Juliette Goodrich, and Sarah Donchie. Groundbreaking original storytelling from the KPIX newsroom. Plus Bear Politics, Project Earth, and weather like you've never seen. The primetime edition. Weeknights on the new Pix Plus. 44 Cable 12.
going to try and bring us some light rain today. It already did this morning. In fact, if we use the virtual map to visualize an interesting pattern in terms of where rain had fallen and where it didn't, it had to be on the coast. Petaluma, or at least near the coast. Petaluma, San Francisco, and Half Moon Bay. All got a couple hundredths of an inch of rain in this soupy stuff this morning. Look at the big picture, though. Go inland. Nobody got any rain today. That was in the Santa Clara Valley, or at least not in the morning, and not in the Tri-Valley. There were a few showers we were watching falling down in the Santa Clara Valley, but I just don't see anything measurable that actually accumulated down there. So we're going to look ahead now because there's still a chance for more of this. And on the big picture, the system is going to continue to drop a few showers off the coast through this afternoon while we're looking at blue sky. So it's kind of an interesting setup. The wind is going to be the more impactful side of this, and we could see 40-mile-an-hour gusts moving across the coast this afternoon with 20-mile-an-hour gusts inland. That's kind of the review on this. You can see how this will go in the afternoon. Strong winds out here, 20 to 25-mile-an-hour winds if you're in the immediate bay or in the inland valleys. What does this mean for the weekend? We're looking at that coming up in the full forecast in just a bit.
Well, you might remember back in the day, Blockbuster had about 9,000 stores globally, 65 million registered customers. These days, only one store remains in Oregon, but as our Itai Haab reports, Blockbuster's saga is now getting a bit of a sequel.
If you're one of the last holdouts to own a VCR, you may want to dust it off, as Blockbuster is making a comeback. Well, sort of. Thomas Brunghart and Tony Bernasconi are the owners of the Traveling Museum, a vintage store in Benicia.
Frozen?
Recently, they took their huge selection of VHS tapes and DVDs and launched the town's first ever free Blockbuster. Think one of those lending libraries, but instead of books, they're filled with old movies.
We've got Gidget, You've Got Mail, 7 Years in Tibet.
Since then, the old newspaper box, painted in Blockbuster's iconic blue and yellow colors, has quickly become the hottest ticket in town.
As a kid, I would spend hours in the movie store just picking up boxes, reading the blurbs, reading the reviews.
Kristen Demers, a business owner, remembers hitting her first Blockbuster store when she was just a child. Fast forward to today, she's back at it.
Like there was one summer where I must have rented like 5 movies from Blockbuster every week.
And it's not just in Benicia. These so-called free Blockbusters are popping up across the country and beyond.
I'm surprised by the reaction every day.
It all started when Brian Morrison, a movie producer and former Blockbuster employee, set up the first box in Los Angeles. He says this Blockbuster reboot is a plot twist he never saw coming.
Do you even know how many of these boxes are out there?
It's hard to put an exact number on it, but we have over 200 locations in the US, Canada, Mexico, the UK, and Australia.
But not everyone's on board with this idea. Dish, the company that owns the brand, recently sent Brian a letter asking him to stop using their trademark. And while he says he's barred from discussing details, he was able to tell us this much.
Is it something that can be stopped?
With the Blair Witch Project?
Thomas and Tony say these Blockbuster stands are a reminder to be kind and rewind. Not just the tape, but life itself.
It just takes us back to being, 5, 6 years old again at home, watching the same tape over and over again.
Hitting play on nostalgia by thinking outside the box.
Well, Free Blockbuster's website shows a number of locations in the Bay Area, including San Jose, Oakland, and Rohnert Park. May is the official month to celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and last night we held our annual event to honor the community. Well, throughout next month, we'll bring you stories from the AAPI community, from the power of the AAPI vote to the oldest Miss Chinatown. We'll also bring you an hour-long special celebrating the community. Well, thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ryan Yamamoto. We'll be right back with your First Alert forecast and a look at your top stories. Yamamoto, and this is the Minute. Fire tore through a 4-story building under construction in San Francisco. It broke out just after 4:30 this morning at Lion and Clay in Presidio Heights. Firefighters say 6 residential units were damaged. They were all vacant. No reports of any injuries. Students